Hello and welcome to the Week 8 NFL Recap. I am your host, Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst here at EdjSports. And joining me, as always, on Monday morning is Scott Brown, our VP of Data Science. Scott, how did you enjoy the nice Halloween weekend?
Oh, yeah, I had a good time. There were some good games to be watched in there as well. Starting Thursday night, we had a really good one that went down to the wire, and another good one last night on Sunday Night Football. So was able to enjoy some football in between my Halloween festivities. How about you, Ian?
It was good. Didn't have a whole lot going on. Don't have kids or anything, so the Halloween isn't as fun for me as I'm sure it is for you, but was still able to enjoy some festivities and get out, have some fun before sitting down in front of the TV all day yesterday to watch some football. So luckily there were some entertaining games yesterday. Had some good plays, good decisions, and just a lot going on. So all in all, good weekend. So before we get started, though, again, just want to remind everyone you can catch us on the EdjSports Podcast Network on your podcast platform of choice. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, help us build our audience, get our voices out there and our analysis out there to more people. And also subscribe to our EdjSports YouTube channel. You'll be able to catch all of these podcasts as well as our matchup previews that we have for every game every week. And also be sure to get over to our new site and experience that we've got at edjsports.com. It's spelled EDJsports.com. And don't forget to download our new app, which is available for both iOS and Android. On the app, you can get pregame betting insights, see some distribution charts for both the spread and the total for each game, as well as our fair value spreads and totals. And you also will have the ability to track your bets that you place and see the probability of those bets hitting in real time. Those update in real time with the game's data, and will show you what the probability is of a given bet covering or hitting whatever the bet is at any point throughout the games. Now that we've got the kind of the formalities out of the way, let's just jump right into that Week 8 recap. We've still got one game to go tonight between the Giants and Chiefs, but we're going to start with last night's game, Cowboys and Vikings, a Cooper Rush game. This was a game that saw the spread shift pretty quickly. I think it was Thursday night when it came out that Dak may not be playing. I think the first indication was when the line Vegas shifted from Dallas minus 2.5, I think, to Minnesota minus 2.5. And that was the first indication that all eyes were on Dak on Friday, Saturday, up until Sunday night, even though it looked like, figured we weren't going to play. He wasn't going to play, ended up not. But crazy finish on the Cowboys' last possession, a circus catch by Amari Cooper. The ball hit the defender's chest, could have had an interception, hit off his chest, off his hand. Cooper tipped it a couple times to himself, ended up catching it, and then caught the game-winning touchdown just a few plays later, which comes in as our number 5 most impactful play of the week. There was just over a minute left in the game, and that was not the number 5 play, the touchdown. Number 5 play was the Zeke Elliott third down conversion. It was 3rd and 11 in the Minnesota 20 with just over a minute left. Rush connects with Zeke. He muscled his way forward, broke a couple tackles, and fell forward for 15 yards down to, I think, the 4-yard line. That added 31.1% win probability. That then set up the game-winning score I just mentioned to Amari Cooper, the back corner in the end zone over Cameron Dantzler. So the Vikings did have one last possession, Scott, that were unable to score, just couldn't really get anything going. Really not a lot from this game decision-wise. Mike Zimmer did have a good go during this game. It doesn't show up in our top five decisions, but the Vikings faced 4th and 1. I think they were in their own territory. They might have been nearing midfield. I believe it was about a 3.5%er there. It's 4th and 1 at their own 44 late in the second quarter. Went for it. They converted that as well. It was a 4% win probability increase. That comes in right around number 10. So not the top 5, but a guy that we've hammered on Zimmer. I think he's had actually a couple good decisions the last few weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, there was that brutal game he had early on in the season where I think, he racked up, I think, 3 or 4 errors, really big errors in that game. But yeah, and this one kind of avoids our hit list a little bit and, pulls off a good decision there in the second quarter on a 4th and 1. So maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, we would expect, I think, in this day and age to see coaches going for it quite a bit on 4th and 1. So good for Mike Zimmer to get that one right. But yeah, certainly no stranger to our lists, in particular the worst play call. But yeah, this game definitely was exciting at the end. Props to Amari Cooper. I mean, don't sleep on Amari Cooper. That guy is every bit as talented as some of the best receivers in the league.
Fighting through what looked like a hamstring injury on the sideline, massaging his own hamstring with one of those massage guns too, and was able to come back. That was on the final drive and ended up coming back in and scoring there.
Yeah, he's super impressive. That team, that offense is just stacked with weapons. No Dak, which definitely was big on the total for this game, and it came in under. But I mean, good for Dallas to be able to pull out that win against Minnesota. And man, if you're Minnesota, not where you want to be at this point in the season, you find yourself with largely the same group that you've had and had success with in seasons past, just not in a good spot right now. But it was definitely a nice surprise there on Sunday Night Football at the end of that game that it became interesting and some offense came in maybe when you didn't expect it.
Yeah, two really good defenses there. That's a game where we expected a little bit more points to be scored. Our fair value was around 47, but we still liked the under. At 51.5, I think it closed at 49.5 is what I saw it at when I got it last night. So it ended up being only 33 points in this one, a final of 36, a final of 20-16. So both defenses good. As I mentioned, no Dak. I think things could have been a lot different with Dak in there, but again, the Vikings just heartbreakers every single week. Either their fan base has to have a lot of people with high blood pressure. Yeah. This season, it seems like every single one of their games is coming down to the wire. They win some, they lose some. It's been tough for them, but I mean, chasing Green Bay, it's going to be tough. Those games are games they have to win if they want to be in contention for that division with the Packers there at the top at 7-1, having won 6 straight. And that's actually a perfect little segue there, moving into the Thursday night football game. I know it was a while ago, but this was just a great game. You've got Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers missing his top 3 receivers, going against undefeated Arizona. Kyler Murray, who's was MVP leading candidate, one of the top candidates coming into this weekend. This is a game I was heavily invested in as a Packers fan, and it is my job to watch these games and kind of do the analysis live and then come in here and review it as well. So really had my eyes on this one, and just another wild finish. Started the week with just a crazy game. Packers were up, 10 points, I think, a couple times in this game. Were able to some big decisions in this one, some big plays as well. Kingsbury, LaFleur both had good calls. One of them was top 2 in our top 5. 2 of them were in our top 5. The third best decision was Kingsbury in the fourth quarter, fairly early on, 13-17 left, 4th and 1 at the Green Bay 40. Goes for it, down 10, 6.6% pre-snap win probability increased there. That's kind of a no-brainer. You're down 10, fourth quarter. Good try for a long field goal. They got Matt Prater, who's got a big leg. We know they were at home. They're in the dome there, indoors. But 4th and 1 with that offense against that Green Bay defense that really hasn't been very good. You just got to go for it there.
Yeah, got to make something happen. It's a really optimistic thing there to kick a field goal, right? Just sort of hoping that the Packers don't go down the field on you next and score a touchdown.
And hoping they make it, first of all.
58
yards is a long way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Good point. And you're just absolutely toast. So I think going forward here is a slam dunk. Definitely the right move by Kingsbury, and I think set them up nicely for later on in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and the next one that came in, we mentioned there were 2 in our top 5, is our best decision of the week. Not only of the week, of the entire season so far. So fourth quarter later on, Packers have the ball. 4th and 1, 4th and goal at the Arizona 1-yard line. So this was set up too by just an amazing play by Aaron Rodgers, looking for someone in the end zone on 3rd and goal. Ends up having to scramble up for, I think, close to 10 yards and just diving forward, coming up just short of the end zone, but just putting his body on the line for the team, and comes up short, but they decide to go for it up 3. So a field goal, we talk about this all the time. You kick a field goal, you turn a 1-score game into a 1-score game, and that offense you've got on the other side is one of the most potent offenses in the NFL. You don't get it, which they did not get it. It was an incomplete turnover on downs. They're backed up at their own 1-yard line with a little over 3 minutes to go. So you give them literally the toughest way, the toughest path to score. Although they only need a field goal to tie, they got to march down the field. Either way you look at it, for a touchdown to win. But the decision to go for it increased their win probability, Green Bay's, by 20.1% prior to the snap. So that's just big. That's huge. That's, like I said, biggest of the year so far. Typically our biggest of the season comes in around 20, 21, 22. So wouldn't be surprised if this one stands the test of time for the rest of the season as our top decision there.
Yeah, I commend LaFleur. This was obviously a big call, the right call. But I think, you definitely could see some of the 32 coaches in the league kick a field goal here. And it's just really, really a dumb, boneheaded thing to do. So props to LaFleur for avoiding that mistake. Going up 6 here is really not that great. It is really overrated because, you're still beat by a touchdown. And, you're sort of like motivating the other team, right?
That's really the last team you want to motivate to score a touchdown.
Yeah, right. Whereas before, maybe they're the playbook is more closed off, right? Or it's not nearly as opened up when they're driving down 6 at the end of the game. So, and once again, there's a lot of ways that this can work out, even if you don't get it. You're forcing them to go the entire length of the field. Of course, there were glimmers there for a second that the Cardinals, I think it was not until 3rd and long that they hit 2 back-to-back 20-ish yard plays to really change things and get down the field. But
without DeAndre Hopkins too.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a slam dunk right call, biggest call of the season so far. And LaFleur really no stranger to winding up on the right side of these play call decisions. So we see it yet again. And things are this game was already featuring 2 really, really big decisions there on 4th down. And, the way this game ended, which we'll get to next, is I think only appropriate for how action-packed and interesting this game was.
Yeah, that failed 4th down set up the potential game-winning drive for the Cardinals, which ended up leading to our most impactful play of the week. That was you probably know if you watched this game, even if you didn't, you probably know. 4th quarter, 15 seconds left, 2nd and goal at the 5 for Arizona. Kyler Murray's pass is intercepted in the end zone by Rasul Douglas, who Green Bay just signed off of Arizona's practice squad a couple weeks before. And it was a win probability decrease of 66%. And that's a play where it looked like it was intended for A.J. Green. It looked like he thought they were running the ball. The way he was blocking into the end zone, his back was turned. He never even turned around. It doesn't make sense. They didn't have any timeouts. Just kind of a boneheaded play and lack of awareness, I guess. I mean, A.J. Green's one of the great receivers, not in his present state, but over his career is one of the great receivers in the game. And just not sure what happened there, but ended up being the game-winning interception. Rasul Douglas kind of tipped it to himself for a second, just kind of saw the ball, oh, there it is, reached out, tipped it, caught it. Ended up winning the game for the Packers and ending the Arizona unbeaten streak to start the season.
Yeah, that's an interesting tidbit about Rasul Douglas. I did not know that. It looks like it's kind of understandable that you could get crossed up on that Arizona offense based on how much kind of run pass option stuff that they run. Although you would expect kind of in that particular situation everybody be on the same page. Yep. But yeah, what a crazy finish there, and the Cardinals go from looks like they're knocking on the door to win the game to worst case scenario, we'll just tie it up and go into overtime, to losing it right on that play. So you can pretty easily see why this wound up being a very highly impactful play. Short of I guess game-winning field goals that go wide. This sort of play is really the top of the list on any given week when stuff like this happens. So. Definitely an exciting conclusion to the game, and this game really delivered on a Thursday night. When in general, Thursday night games have been lackluster in past seasons. You don't always wind up with the primo matchups there, but this one really delivered in a big way between really the future of the NFL and sort of the current and past of the NFL at the quarterback position. Kyler Murray has a very bright future. He's already realizing that right now, and Aaron Rodgers obviously has been doing it, for so long at the highest level. So it was really cool to see this game really play out in such a competitive, interesting way.
Yeah, really, you mentioned it, just a great game to start the week. It ended up being the 3rd highest Thursday Night Football matchup in terms of viewership in the history of the Fox package the NFL sent out on their email today. And you mentioned also game-winning field goals, and that play coming up pretty big. Turns out this was the 4th most impactful play of the season so far. So we have LaFleur as the best decision of the season. This comes in at 4th behind Justin Tucker's 66-yard field goal. Greg Joseph, we just talked about the Vikings field goal against the Cardinals that he missed at the end. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire's fumble against Baltimore when they were going down for a potentially game-winning field goal late in the game. So 65.9% decrease, good for biggest of the week and fourth most of the season so far. Moving on to another game, another very good game, Colts and Titans. This was in Indy. The Colts started out hot, went up 14-0. Michael Pittman had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. The first Colts receiver to do that in a long time. I don't remember when it was, but saw the tweet yesterday. So they started off really well. Frank Reich had 3 fourth down goes in the first quarter. I think they converted 2, didn't convert the one. The 4th and 3 around midfield. Got quite a bit of criticism during and after the game on that, but doesn't come in as our top 5, but that was a good decision. We did agree with his decision to go for it there. Ended up being 4th and 3 at the Tennessee 38 it was. Ended up getting they converted on that one early in the game. That was the first one of the game that they went for. Then they had 4th and goal at the Titans 2 on that same drive where they scored. That was good for 2.7%. And then the 4th and 3 at the Tennessee 40 was the one. So they're not even midfield. Like that's a spot where you don't really want to punt from there. It's a long field goal. Was a 1.7% increase that we agreed, but they did not convert on that one. However, this had everything from top plays in our top 5s to good decisions and bad decisions in our top 5s as well. Like I said, those 3 didn't even make the list. But in the fourth quarter, the Titans had possession. Mike Vrabel on the same drive had a really good decision and a really bad decision. He had the second best 4th down go of the week. Fourth quarter, just 3:22 left, tied at 24. They've got 4th and 1 at midfield, right on the 50-yard line. Goes for it, adding 18.5% pre-snap win probability. Derrick Henry gets the first down. If I remember, I didn't see the play, but at the time, but after the fact, that was a tough conversion there. That was just a Derrick Henry play where he converted that. Later on the same possession, though, the worst call of the week. And this is one we always have people disagree. We point out kind of when we think that's going to be a situation. This is one, 1:39 left. 4th and 6 on the Indy 45. So they're across midfield. Chooses to punt, tied at 24. Said there was only 1:39 left. This cost them 10.8% in pre-snap win probability. The punt ended up going to the Indianapolis 8. Carson Wentz had a kind of an inexplicable pass. Looked like he was trying to prevent a safety, but threw it right into the hands of a defender. I think it was Kevin Byard that might have been a different one, but right at the 2-yard line. Threw it about 2 yards, intercepted it, had a walk-in score, took 2 steps, he was in the end zone. But the decision to punt, despite the fact that the Titans ended up getting a go-ahead touchdown later, cost them 10.8% and was the wrong call, even at a 4th and 6 in that situation. What do you think about that one, Scott?
Yeah, this is a weird sequence. I mean, the right play call to start the sequence, right at midfield, you have a 4th and 1. Definitely a slam dunk to go for it there with Derrick Henry in your backfield, and with the amount of time remaining, you just want to pick that up, continue to grind on the clock, and then the ideal situation is you're kicking what would be a game-winning field goal attempt as time expires. Unfortunately, the drive sort of stalled out shortly thereafter, and they're faced with another 4th down, this one 4th and 6, as you mentioned. And yeah, I mean, I can sort of understand where Vrabel starts to diverge with what we think is the optimal play call here. You're staring at 4th and 6, which I think seems a lot scarier than it is, right? It seems a lot scarier than it is. You definitely have to open up the playbook a little bit here. You're going to be throwing the ball. Whereas on like a 4th and 1 with Derrick Henry, you just sort of, live with, coaches are more comfortable living with the consequences of giving it to somebody like that in that offensive front. But yeah, this is a mistake. We think the right thing to do here is to go for it. You're really not doing much here with field position by punting. And, I think it was a 37-yard punt is really not swinging field position all that much. You are setting up your opponent with, a prime amount of time on the clock to go down, not give you any chance at rebuttal, and all they need to do is kick a field goal to win. So, really does not seem like the right play call. However, there would be a third play call or a third play on the sequence that changes everything, which is I don't know what Carson Wentz was thinking. It looked like they were trying to set up some sort of screen pass near the goal line, and oh my goodness, this was an absolute disaster of a play. to happen in the circumstances. He throws it to I don't know who, gets tipped up, caught, and pick six. Yeah, instant pick six in your face. Absolute disaster of a play to happen at the time. So I guess in retrospect, Vrabel trusted his defense or what have you, and they came through in a big way.
It's a tough defense to trust, though. Have not been good. I think they're bottom 5 in the league. It looks like they were 22nd coming into this game overall, so they've been a little bit better the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean they came through big, so let's give them their props.
Yep.
But you definitely don't want to be counting on that as a way to win a football game. In general, it's pretty hard to repeat, right? So. We'd like to see the offense stay on the field in that 4th and 6, but things sort of worked out, and man, Carson Wentz, that was not the end of the story, right? This game made it to overtime, so I think we have some more plays to get into.
Yeah, and just a side note on that, or it's not really a side note, but you mentioned 4th and 6 can be a little bit scary, but that Indianapolis defense especially has been pretty good, not great, but they're 12th overall. But interestingly, Football Outsiders and DVOA, they're 22nd against the pass. So kind of even more of an argument, and that obviously plays into what our model. We utilize DVOA, and in our simulation, it takes into account the strengths and weaknesses of these teams. So it knows that Indianapolis is not a great pass defense team. So maybe even give them, a little bit better chance there than an average team, going against a better defense. But yeah, 10.8% is the worst of the week. And I mentioned Football Outsiders and those stats. Those are available at footballoutsiders.com. Most of those DVOA stats, or some of those you can get for free just by signing up for an account with your email. But we also have a Football Outsiders premium subscription called FO Plus, which you can get for only $1 per week for annual subscriptions. And we've got more in-depth stats, more premium stats, and some fantasy advice, fantasy rankings, and projections that you can get to help out as we're halfway through the week or halfway through the season and kind of starting to make a push for the fantasy playoffs, where if you're top of the league, you're looking good. If you're in the middle, you can get some of those stats that'll help you get into the playoffs and win your league. So again, that's at Football Outsiders, and that is a FO Plus subscription. Yeah, moving on to that, the rest of the Colts-Titans game. 4th most impactful play of the week came after the Titans touchdown. 4th quarter, 1:33 left. 1st and 10, or this was the play, that we were just talking about. 1st and 10 at their own 8, picked off, but it was Elijah Molden who returned it for a touchdown, not Kevin Byard. I think Byard got the one in overtime. But that would cost the Colts 42.1% win probability. No shocker there. They were tied at the time, so the Titans went up 7. They did get another shot to score, Indianapolis did, and they drove down the field, tied the game at 31 late to set up overtime. I think there was about 22 seconds left when they scored. First possession was a punt for the Colts. The Titans can win with any score at that point. But then comes our 4th worst play call of the week. This is another one, I think. This one's closer. May have more people agree with this one based on the distance, maybe not on the field position. So Titans-Colts overtime. I'll kind of just set it up real quick. 7 minutes, 34 seconds left. 4th and 2. Tennessee's at their own 36. Why don't you take this one, Scott? What happened here?
Yeah. So once again, Vrabel sent the punting unit out on the field to give the ball over to the Colts. And in overtime, right, the stakes are raised. And when you're the first team to have possession, that's usually a good thing, right? You get to free roll out a win by going down the field, attempting to score a touchdown. You can kick a field goal to sort of put pressure on the opposing offense. But when you get nothing, and you're the Titans with the defense that they have in general, when you have a 4th and 2, it's really, really the right thing to do to keep the offense on the field right there and go for it. I know, field position traditionally has, people place a lot of value on it, but yeah, I mean, you're going to be converting that 4th and 2 a high percentage at a high percentage, and
probably over 50%. I think close to 60, and especially with Derrick Henry, we've mentioned, you've got him, who unfortunately actually now looks like he may be out for the regular season, but at the time, he's one of the best running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you by picking it up there, you maintain the free roll that you luckily started off with. You can obviously continue the drive, and there are other ways to win the game, kicking the field goal. But yeah, when you punt it there, the Colts only have to, the field position doesn't matter that much, because the Colts only need to get in the field goal range, right, to have a shot, like a real legitimate shot at winning the game. So you have to discount that. Obviously in the event that you go for it and fail, like they're pretty much right knocking on the door to kick a field goal. The options aren't fantastic. You would have loved not to, be facing sort of this 4th and 2 in your own, backed up in your own territory. Not necessarily backed up, but at your own 36. But yeah, really, really the right move here, I think, is to keep the offense on the field, go for it in this short yardage situation. It's only 2 yards. You're going to be converting this at a high clip. You maintain your free roll, and you still have lots of other ways to win the game. Even if you're unable to cash in on a touchdown, there's lots of ways to succeed here.
Yeah, and I mentioned, you've got Derrick Henry at the same time. He didn't have a great game. Looks like the Colts did a really good job. He had 23 carries, I think, 28 for 68 yards. But I mentioned just a minute ago, and we've talked before, you don't have to run the ball on 4th and short. You can pass it. Which Indy, Tannehill had a decent game, had a couple picks, but had 265 yards, 3 touchdowns. So wasn't, awful. They had a couple options in just short yardage, like you said. High probability chance of converting over 50% of the time there. So,
and A.J. Brown had a big game, if I recall. I mean,
like 8 for 120 something, I think, and a touch, 10 for 155.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like the Titans as well. Obviously they have Derrick Henry and that good offensive front, but I think they're a pretty sneaky good pass offense as well. And no Julio yesterday, but when you got Julio and A.J. Brown as your receivers lining up in general, when you got a 4th and 2, man, just keep them on the field. Give them a shot.
Yeah, absolutely agree. But once again, bailed out by Carson Wentz, who can look so good and then look so bad. So it ended up being our second most impactful play of the week. 5:56 left, so just shortly after 1st and 10 at the Indy 27. Wentz is intercepted by Kevin Byard. Cost him 50.2% win probability. Went down, set up the game-winning field goal for the Titans as they get the upset. Despite some errors down the stretch from Vrabel, again, he did have the second best decision of the week, 4th down call, which is second best of the season. If it wasn't for LaFleur, would be tops of the week and of the season. But despite him and some of his decision making, the Titans once again pull it out and just have looked so bad sometimes. Just haven't played good games, but have found ways. They've looked so good too at times against the Chiefs and the Bills, but just find ways to win games and sit at 6-2 and are atop the AFC South and atop the AFC. I think there's only a couple, maybe one other team at 6-2. I think the Bills. So
pulling off big upsets against some of the best teams in the NFL, and then losing to the Jets.
Yep, just losing to the Jets in the week 1. They got absolutely destroyed by the Cardinals, which is really no surprise. There, I mean, maybe now it is, but yeah, the couple bad games, but some really good games where they found a way to win. So. And in that Jets game, too, to be fair, they were down A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. But still, the Titans are a much better team than the Jets. So we'll see if they can keep it up, and maybe Mike Vrabel will continue will learn from his mistakes and kind of go along the lines of those good decisions that he has made this season. Just a fun note we have here from Adam Schefter, too. Sunday was the revenge of the backup. So Cowboys quarterback, he said Cowboys quarterback Cooper Rush, Jets quarterback Mike White, Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith, and Saints quarterback Trevor Siemian combined for 9 total touchdowns and all contributed wins for their teams. Rush and White both got wins. Those were their first starts of their NFL career. So impressive. Again, both were underdogs there in those games. The Jets were big underdogs. Dallas, we said, ended up being, I think it shifted to 2.5. I don't know what the final line was there, but a couple perhaps improbable wins and a big comeback from the Jets, who were down to 3.2% win probability with just about 7 minutes left in that game, when they were down 11 before scoring 14 unanswered to win the game. Now we're going to move into our top 5 most impactful plays. Now that we've got those storylines out of the way and covered some games, and these are the plays that have the biggest impact on the game in terms of win probability, either positive or negative, but that will be from the offense's perspective. A couple of these we've already covered, so we'll go through them kind of quickly. Number 5 was Cowboys-Vikings, down 3. That 3rd and 11 conversion to Ezekiel Elliott by Cooper Rush, down to the Minnesota 5. That was a 31.1% win probability increase for the Cowboys. Number 4, Colts at Titans tied at 24. 1st and 10 at their own 8. Carson Wentz's pass is intercepted by Bolden and returned for a touchdown. That was a 42.1% decrease in win probability for the Saints. Coming to a game we haven't talked about yet, that was a really good game. Just mentioned the backup for the Saints, Trevor Siemian. The Buccaneers-Saints, Bucs were down 2. final drive where you think this is Tom Brady's time to shine. It's what he always does. With 2nd and 10, he's intercepted, and the ball's returned for a touchdown. Cost the Buccaneers 48.8%. And just a note from that one, just kind of a crazy scene after the game. You've got them celebrating in the locker room. It looks like dark strobe lights, whatever's going on. All of a sudden, you see Jameis Winston dancing on crutches with what's been reported. I don't know if it's been official yet, but reported as a torn ACL and some MCL damage. Just hopping on one leg with some crutches, going crazy. But that was awesome. That was the game of the week. Kind of a little bit of the air came out of it when Jameis got hurt, but Simeon was able to perform very well, keep them in that game, and the Saints came away with a win. I don't know if there's anything you want to add. I don't think we have anything from that game in any of our top fives the rest of the way, but if there anything that you wanted to add for that game while we're here on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of interesting that the Buccaneers were exactly 50% chance or 50% GWC in this situation, and obviously anytime you have a pick six when there's only about a minute and a half left in the game and you're down 2, it's over at that point, right? And so just torch all of that GWC in one play. And yeah, as you mentioned, I think a lot of times Tom Brady's no stranger to these situations and being really successful in these spots. Not this time though, and it's just a good reminder that really lots of different things. It's really why we love sports, right? It keeps you guessing. I think like the build up and the narrative behind Tom Brady coming back on these late game drives is definitely with all of us. But yeah, here not to be, and maybe the big difference maker here is that excellent Saints defense. They really have been good for some time now, and they're able to come up big in a very important moment in this game.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm kind of surprised it was only 50%, but on the road, you mentioned against that great Saints defense, I think they're top 3 overall. Just coming up big there. It was kind of funny watching the teammates of, I forget who got the interception on that one, but watching the teammates kind of tell him to get down as he's going down the sideline really wasn't as big there. The one thing that could have kind of come back to bite them from scoring that touchdown was if they had missed the extra point.
Right.
Because it was a 2-point lead, touchdown put it to 8.
Game. Yeah.
And that extra point put it to 9. So
yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, that would have been some way to have lost a football game if
send that to overtime. Yeah. But yeah, that was interesting because I was thinking the same thing. I think when I was running the numbers though, it's one of those situations where people think it's bigger than it really is, but they, like we see here, they went up to, or Tampa dropped to 1.2%. They probably dropped to 0.1% if he drops down, because they can kneel out the clock basically after the Bucs used their last timeout. So not that big of a difference, but still, so we know you never want to give Tom Brady anything over 0% chance, because there's a big chance that he might come back and do it.
Yeah, and I think like situational football, it's hard to, as a cornerback before the play, okay, if I get an interception and I have Greenfield in front of me, I need to go down because they only have one timeout. There's a minute and 36 left on the clock, so that means, I can't fault.
Not at all.
Yeah, I can't.
P.J. Williams, I believe, is who it was.
Yeah, I can't fault him for that. So I think big play and a big moment for sure.
And coming in at number 2, these top 2 are ones we already covered. Colts, Titans tied at 31 in this time. 5:56 left. We're in overtime as the Wentz, another interception at his own 46, returned back to the 32. That cost him 50.2%. And then the Cardinals, Kyler Murray's pass intercepted in the end zone with 15 seconds left, cost them 66% in win probability. So now we're going to move on to our best play calls. But before we do, again, just want to remind you to rate, review, subscribe to all of our EdjSports shows. Again, those are on any podcast platform, as well as our YouTube channel, where these are posted after the fact. Again, 5-star review, help us get our analysis and everything out to more people. So moving on to the top 5 best decisions, we'll start with. These are the ones that have the biggest impact on pre-snap win probability. On 4th down, typically 4th downs. Every once in a while we'll have a 2-point conversion or an onside kick, but typically those are pretty obvious situations that we're not going to include those. So coming in at number 5, we've got Browns and Steelers. Browns up 3-0, 4th and 1 at the Pittsburgh 39, right at the start of the second quarter. Kevin Stefanski chooses to go for it. This increases their pre-snap win probability by 5.3%. Nick Chubb is stopped. He actually lost a yard on this play. They did not convert. We're going to see Stefanski on the other side of this here soon. But typically he's been pretty good on 4th downs. And just another indication. This one's kind of an obvious one. You're in that not really kind of a no man's land. The 39, you're looking at a 57-yard field goal.
Yeah.
Their field goal kicker, McLaughlin, isn't really a proven kicker. He's pretty good, but not had been in the league for too long. Not really known as one of the best in the league or anything like that. So, and you don't want to punt there. Even best case scenario, you gain 38 yards or at their 1, but it's still the other win probability is going to be higher by going for it than what it would be on the other team starting at their 1-yard line probably.
Yeah, you nailed it there. I mean, an interesting aspect to this one is it's basically just 1 quarter into the game, so you're already ought to be going for it. But you really touched on all of the elements that make this a go. Beyond just it being a fourth and 1, and you have Nick Chubb running the ball. But your alternatives aren't great. So it would have been about a 57-yard field goal. I mean, you mentioned with the special teams unit that's no gimme by any means. So why even try if you kind of know your kicker, know what he's capable of, and very unlikely to be successful and put in that situation. And then the other alternative is punting the ball. Doesn't feel great. You can't. I mean, the ceiling on how much you can swing field position is literally 38 yards or whatever. So that's not very. Your punter's really constrained there in what he can do and what your gunners can do. And then that's in the best case scenario, right? Like if the ball just goes to the end zone, you've swung field position less than 20 yards. So what, right? So yeah, definitely. Holding on to the ball going forward here is the right move, and good to see Stefanski come up with the right decision. And even in spite of it being early in this one, it's definitely the right call.
Yeah, and it may have been deterred later on. Like I said, we'll get to that when we get to our worst decisions. Well, spoiler, he is in the top 5 as well there. But moving on to number 4 was the Bears, who did not have head coach Matt Nagy, so I just assumed they were going to blow out the 49ers this week with a different guy at coach, but it was Chris Tabor? I think that's who it was. So he comes in with the 4th best decision of the week. 49ers, or the Bears were down 7 to the 49ers with 9:43 left in the 4th. Quite a bit of time, but 4th and 1 at the San Francisco 42, and decides to go for it, increase the pre-snap win probability by 6%. And this was just a phenomenal play by Justin Fields.
Yeah. Making something happen. Improvising some backyard football here, rolls to the right, sees 3 defenders right in his way, peels back to the left, picks up some blocks. I think kind of cuts back towards the center of the field a little bit, picks up another block, maybe 10 yards from the end zone and puts it in for a touchdown. Yeah, that was a wild, scrambly play. But backing up there to just the decision, it's a solid one. 4th and 1 once again. With 9:43 left in the 4th, and the Bears are down a touchdown. They need to make something happen and sort of press the issue. You can't just count on the fact that if you kick a field goal here, you give the ball back to the 49ers, that it stays a 1-possession game. They go down, and if the 49ers are able to score a touchdown at that point, it's pretty much a dagger. So yeah, right call here, and interesting to see. Sort of some continuity in going for it, even when Nagy's out. I think in general, he's shown to I think at least err on the side of being a bit more aggressive, but it's definitely inconsistent. But interesting to see, like I said, the Bears come up with the right play call and at the right moment in this game.
Yeah, that ended up being a 22-yard touchdown in the box score, but ran about 70 yards on that play, it seemed. Like you said, all the way to the right, all the way back to the left, and then downfield cutting back towards the middle. But number 4 there of the week for Chris Tabor, head coaching for the Bears this week. Number 3 we mentioned as well, Cardinals, Packers. Cardinals down 10, 4th and 1 at the Packers 40 early in the 4th quarter. Kyler Murray completes a pass to new addition Zach Ertz in his, I think, 2nd game with the Cardinals. And that was good for a 6.6% pre-snap win probability increase. Number 2, Titans Colts tied at 24. Vrabel's decision to go for it on 4th and 1 at the Tennessee 50. Like we said, would have been the best of the week and best of the season at 18.5% increase, if not for Matt LaFleur, our 2020 head coach of the year last year, NFL EdjSports Coach of the Year. Up 3 points against the Cardinals late, 4th and goal at the 1. Increase of 20.1% pre-snap win probability. Despite the fact they didn't convert, obviously they dropped down after that play to 64.5. They would have been up to 98% had they scored there to go up go up 9 pending the PAT. But the pre-snap increase was 20.1, good for best of Week 8 and best of the season so far. We still have one more game to go, and we know what Andy Reid can do. So if that game's close late, he may have a chance to overcome Matt LaFleur for best of the year there. Now we're going to move into our top 5 worst play calls. Before that, just want to remind you again, like we did at the top of the show, about our website and our app. It's edjsports.com, EdjSports.com, and our EdjSports app available for both iOS and Android, where you can get news and betting analysis, pregame betting analysis, as well as some in-depth analysis looking at our distribution chart, seeing all of the outcomes, different percentages of different spreads and totals there. And then you can also see all of these top 5s that we're going over today. You can see those on our website as well, in the app and on our social media, which is at EdjSports. So, Scott, now that the good decisions are out of the way, like I said, we're going to move on to the worst decisions. Always the most fun. Last week, we didn't really have a ton here. None of the big decisions came until Monday night. Obviously, we do our show on Monday morning, so we didn't really get to cover any of those. But these are the decisions that coaches made that had the worst or the biggest negative impact on the game in terms of their pre-snap win probability at the point of decision making. So coming in at number 5, we've got the Jets versus the Bengals. So third quarter, 5:20 left, 4th and 2 on the Cincinnati 6. The Jets have the ball. Robert Saleh chooses to attempt a field goal. They're down 17-14, so we talk about this a lot, kind of pulling even for a little bit for a period of time. Instead of going for it, this cost them 4.9% pre-snap win probability. They did make the field goal. As we know, they went on to win the game, but just because they won doesn't mean this was the best decision. They could have gone ahead with a touchdown there potentially, or scored at least and taken some more time off. Still a lot of time left, 5 minutes left in the third quarter, but not the optimal call in this situation.
Yeah, and I mean the Jets were, I guess you could say, punching above their weight in this game, and maybe there's a premium put on pulling even, as you mentioned. But if you're playing to win, you definitely want to be going for it in these situations. 4th and 2 from your opponent's 6-yard line. We talk about this all the time, but even if you fail, you have them backed up. There are other ways for this to be successful. 4th and 2 should be converted at a high rate, and you could score a touchdown on this play, right? So there's a lot of on each sort of subsequent play. So there's a lot of ways in which this decision can work out. Kicking a 24-yard field goal, just really kind of caps you, right, and what you're able to achieve. I mean, you're sort of fortunate to even find yourself down 3 in the circumstance, but you are down, and as the underdog, you definitely want to be seeking out the higher variance play here. So, you also may, it's also not uncommon that this may be maybe one of the best chances for you in the remainder of the game to really do something, right?
Especially against that Bengals defense that was really good coming into this game.
Yeah, so 4th and 2, going to be converted at a high rate on some decent chunk of the time. You're also going to be scoring a touchdown here. So yeah, we really like and endorse going for it. It winds up being about a 5% error, which isn't the largest error that we see in any given week, but definitely a hefty one here in the third quarter of a close football game.
And coming in at number 4, same game, opposite side, Zach Taylor for the Bengals. This was later after the Jets had scored 14 straight. I guess since that they had scored 17 points there, it's 14 points since being down 31-20. Only 2 minutes left in the game. This is gonna raise a lot of eyebrows for people.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't really sure about this one this morning, but it makes sense. It's defensible, as most or all of these are. That's the reason we have them. Sometimes they're head scratchers, but down 3, 4th and 19 at their own 40. Both teams still have 3 timeouts left, but Cincinnati chooses to punt, and this cost them 5.4% in pre-snap win probability. Again, not one of our biggest errors. We're not saying they can't still win. They only win a little less than a fifth of the time versus a quarter of the time in this situation, looking at their win probability associated with each of those decisions. But a 4th and 19, like that, probability of converting that is probably very low. But, I mean, there's a chance they don't get the ball back, I guess.
Yeah, when I saw this one, I knew we'd probably get roasted over it. But when I took the time to sort of work through what the model's simming in this situation, it makes more and more sense to me, and I'm going to go ahead and make my case to defend it. So you are the Bengals in this situation. You're down 3. You have all of your timeouts. So does your opponent. 4th and 19 is the big thing that raises the eyebrows. You're on your own 40, and there's a little bit more than 2 minutes left in the game. So I think conventional wisdom here and what we saw happen in the game, punt the ball. Your opponent's going to try to run out the clock, probably 3 runs slamming into the middle of the line of scrimmage. You're going to call your timeouts and then likely get the ball back, in similar field position, maybe with just on the other side of the 2-minute warning. And okay, wonderful. We'll do that. Let's punt the ball. The problem here is that you're obviously just sort of assuming that things play out that way, where the other team just runs the ball and doesn't pick up but a yard or 2 on every play, and you're able to call your timeouts, get the ball back. But if in any of those future scenarios where they're able to pick up a first down, you're really toast, right? You're really toast. And if you go for it here and fail, how does that change their strategy, or how does that change your outlook? It kind of doesn't change it that much, I would argue. The Jets are likely going to take a very conservative play call line anyway, even if they take over it with this great field position. It would be something like a 60-ish yard field goal from just the spot where the ball would be turned over on downs. So even if they ran the ball 3 times, picked up a few yards, they're going to be facing a tough spot where the field goal really is by no means a gimme. They might be punting it back to you. So going for it here and failing is not the end of the game.
There's also a chance that you get 15 or 16, 17 of the yards, and they're in their own field position, on their own side of the field as well. Right. You come up short, but you still turn the ball over.
Right, and the giving up a field goal here, if you're the Bengals, so they're down 3 right now. If you give up another 3, not the end of the world, right? It's still 1 possession game. You can still win with a touchdown. There's a lot of ways I think that this can work out that you maybe wouldn't suspect on the surface, and that really you're not going to be converting this at a high rate, somewhere in the 15% range, but you are free. Like, I think one way I would view this is almost like a free roll in some sense, where you get to realize that 15% probability of picking up the first down, and then you're in much better spot going down the field to kick a field goal, tie the game, or score a touchdown and win it. But in the event that you go for it and fail, which will be common, your opponent doesn't change their strategy much. They're going to be trying to run the ball to run out the clock. You can use your timeouts, and they're not in some sort of territory where they're going to really, where the field position is really going to burn you on its own. They would have to pick up a first down for it to really burn you, and in that case, the game's over anyway, right? Even if they take over, if you punt the ball now and they take over at their own 20 or whatever, like in either of those 2 branches, in those 2 scenarios, they pick up a first down and the game's over. So
yep.
So when you take that into consideration, this becomes, I think, the right move to go for it on 4th down, which I know people are going to disagree with due to the eye-popping number of yards they need to get to pick up a first down.
But, and the timeouts, still have all 3 timeouts.
Yeah, that's right.
And the 2-minute warning is typically a big factor that people play into it.
Yeah, and so once again, I think the way I would frame this is you're sort of free rolling at the chance of picking up a first down on 4th and 19. That's obviously not a super exciting one because there's not a ton of probability behind it. However, if and when you do fail, you're not really all that much worse off than had you punted it.
Yep.
You're in a very similar circumstance, actually. They're not in chip shot field goal territory. They would have to pick up a first down in order to really be in reasonable field goal range. And at that point, the game's kind of over anyway, as we mentioned, because you would have used up all of your timeouts, and they would be able to bleed the clock all the way down anyway. So, yeah, I definitely understand how this would buck conventional wisdom, but we do think it's the right move to go for it here.
Yeah, a really good explanation there, Scott. I hope that helps you all that are listening that maybe were kind of first or like, no way, these people are idiots, to kind of understand the thought process behind that. And at least, even if you disagree, to at least help you see why the model thinks the way it does. Like, this is a very sophisticated model, kind of, we think, best-in-class model.
Absolutely.
Has definitely been tested and updated rigorously throughout the years. So the other option, too, like, how many times do we see a pass interference? Extend a drive there. And, the Bengals, it turned out they didn't get the ball back. They never saw the ball again. However, that was part of that. They should have gotten it if not for that absolutely brutal and just awful unnecessary roughness penalty called. I don't know if you saw the end of that game.
I did see that. That was just absolutely awful.
So, they definitely should have gotten the ball back. The Jets were back at their own 20. Would have been 4th and 12. Bengals would have had really good field position just coming out of the 2-minute warning with, a minute 50 left, minute 45. So just absolutely horrible break for the Bengals, that really, it should have paid off for them, the punt, because of their defense is strong. But, still, that's a chance you take when you punt the ball there. And like we said, you explained it very well that you can see why going for it is the better decision there. Moving on now, after that's kind of the long explanation there, but it was definitely warranted based on the unconventionality, if that's even a word, of that decision.
Yeah, it's definitely an unintuitive and unconventional recommendation to go for it there. But yeah, I like that word. Yeah. It was nice. So moving on, number 3 is Titans-Colts. This is one that we covered as well. The Vrabel 4th and 2 at their own 36 in overtime with 7:34 left was a 6% drop in pre-snap win probability. Number 2, this is mentioned Stefanski in the top 5 best. He comes in at number 2 overall for the worst. And this one is a little surprising from him especially. 4th and 1, they're up 1, 4th and 1 at their own 49, so pretty much midfield. 2:10 left in the game, or in the third quarter, I'm sorry. Take an intentional delay game. I really thought that this was one of those situations where I thought they were going to go for it. But went up with the hard count a few times, got to delay a game. Was a 7.4% decrease in pre-snap win probability. And as a guy like him that's usually on the right side of analytics and, being aggressive, choosing not to go for it. After the game, I saw he was asked about it and said part of, a lot of his quote was, there are a few different things that go into that decision, and I really liked the way the defense was playing. I think part of it, the fact Steelers didn't have a kicker at this point, probably had something to do with it, and admittedly, that's not something we can adjust for kind of mid-game for a kicker. We know that it's Chris Boswell kicking, but mid-game, there's not an easy, really flip to switch or knob to turn to change the kicker, or the fact that they don't have one. So admittedly, it is a little bit probably, but the numbers aren't going to be that far off, I don't think, especially with the Browns on offense at this point. We still know what their offense is. We still know what the Steelers' defense is, and vice versa, the two things that have a much bigger impact. I wonder if the stop earlier kind of deterred him. That was recently, is in his mind. That's what I'm thinking. I totally agree with the points you raised. It's a 7.4% error, though, so there is a decent margin of safety here where going for it's the right call. 4th and 1 from midfield, you're just on your side of 1 yard on your side of midfield. It's the right call to go for it here, and that's going to hold up under a variety of sort of like adversarial, considerations, right? Like even if your offense is really bad, it's the right thing to do. And I imagine that even if the other team's kicker is really bad, it's still going to be the right thing to do when at baseline it's a 7.4% error. So yeah, this one I think is firmly in the territory of go. And I'm with you. I can't help but think that the earlier go that didn't pan out for the Browns when they went for it there to start the second quarter was probably playing in the minds of Stefanski when he decided to basically first take a delay of game and then punt the ball here. So it's definitely, I think, a behavioral bias, as we would say, or some sort of flaw in human judgment there to anchor too closely on a previous 4th and short that didn't pan out and have that play front and center in your mind here to deter you from going for it here when it is the right call. And you'd like to see Stefanski, who's normally pretty good on these decisions, to pull through and to not anchor to that too heavily, to go for it here. But yeah, I guess there were just some other considerations playing in his mind. We don't know what all of those are. We speculated on a few of them. But yeah, he winds up taking the delay of game, sending the punt unit on, and giving the ball back over to the Steelers.
Yeah, and I think the Browns were missing their Jack Conklin, I think, got hurt earlier in the game. I don't think he ever came back in. So, that was probably something that went into it as well. But you mentioned how even if they're a very bad offense, the other team's very good defense, and the other team is, kind of the best in the league. That's something that we look at that Scott. But I've kind of explained this on the live stream that I do with Aaron Schatz, Football Outsiders, later on Mondays a few weeks ago. I don't think it's something we've mentioned on here before. But just a quick explanation, we look at these, and what we do with every decision, we take it the other team has the best offense and the best defense in the league across the board. The team on offense has the worst offense, worst defense across the board, and we look at the decision at that point. And if it's still an error, that's what we call a high confidence error for kind of, we've talked about, but kind of for lack of a better term, because the other ones are still high confidence based on our customizations, which are pretty good. And then, but in this situation, it looks like it's still over a 4% error when we flip it and say Cleveland is the worst team in the league across the board and Pittsburgh's the best. So to your point, there's a lot of cushion there at 7.5% that there's really no doubt that that's going to be an error, and that's the case. Even looking at a huge disparity in talent and performance there.
Yeah, it's going to hold up.
So moving on to number 1, this is one we covered as well, so won't spend too much time on it. It was the Titans and Colts, 4th and 6 at the Colts 45 for Tennessee. Only a minute 39 left in a tie game. It was a punt, cost the Titans 10.8% pre-snap win probability. As we know, Carson Wentz bailed the Titans out a couple times from a couple bad decisions, but this one was number 1 of the week in Week 8. Now we're going to move on to our Monday Night Football preview. Again, just one last time, just want to remind you about the top 5s and all this information you can see on EdjSports.com as well as our EdjSports app if you missed anything or if you want to go back and look at each individual decision and play. And then we'll have our Risky Business column up a little bit later this week. We're still working on that, but that will be up for you as well. You can read that every week at our website and on the app. Moving on to the Monday Night Football preview, Giants and Chiefs. Chiefs are looking to right the ship after really struggling the last few games. The Giants are hoping to stay competitive, maybe kind of catch the Chiefs unprepared, which doesn't seem too likely with the that coaching staff they've got there. Andy Reid, one of the best in the NFL. The Chiefs come in at -10 in the market. Our edge fair value is -7, so that Giants offense has actually been pretty good. They crushed the Carolina Panthers last week, 25-3. In a defense that we thought was really good beginning of the year. Partly had to do with who they played. Panthers did, but I mean the Giants come in. They're not haven't been great. 19th and 27th in offense, 19th in rushing, but passing they actually haven't been that bad. And we know this Chiefs defense is just absolutely terrible coming in. They haven't really been able to stop anyone. It seems like. Coming in at 31st overall. They're 31st against both the pass and the rush. So Daniel Jones, I think, has been a top 15-ish, top half of the league quarterback. I'm mistaken a little bit. The offense hasn't been that good. They're 25th kind of across the board. But Daniel Jones, we know he can run the ball. How do you see this one shaking out, Scott?
Yeah, so the Chiefs are about a 10-point favorite in the market, 10.5, depending on where you look. We actually have fair closer to Chiefs being a 7-point favorite. So we do think that there's a little bit of edge to be had here by taking the points and taking the New York Giants to cover that, or keep this one a little bit closer than maybe the market is expecting. On the side of the over-under, it looks like we think that more points are to be scored in this game than the market. So the market line is at 52.5. And we slightly favor the over with a fair value closer to 55. So, we think that this game is broadly speaking pretty close to being in line. There's not a whole world of difference between our fair values and the markets. But, if we had to place our bets down here on this one, we would like the Giants and we would like the over. If we kind of shift over here and take a look at where the public is placing their bets, we see that overwhelmingly they're backing Kansas City.
It's not even close.
Not even close. About a 75-25 split out in terms of the number of bets placed, backing Kansas City. And in terms of the number, the dollar value of those bets, it's 92% behind Kansas City. So overwhelmingly behind Kansas City. This is really no surprise. I would say in general, Kansas City has been successful atop the NFL the last few seasons, so they're definitely a favorite of the public. They have been for some time, and in this sort of heavy favored situation, the public is definitely coming out to back them. So our model disagrees here, and I guess things are sort of crossed up. Hard to know exactly what to make of that, other than to say it doesn't look like there's any clear or obvious retail versus sharp angle to this game. Kind of one last thing to touch on here. I think it's really interesting that Kansas City finds themselves at 3-4 to start the season. Really, only a game difference between the records of these two teams. The Giants are at 2-5. So really, really surprising. I think if you told anybody to start the season that the Chiefs would begin their season 3-4, you'd probably think, what? When did Patrick Mahomes go down? Did he get hurt in the opener or what's going on? But no, Patrick Mahomes will be playing quarterback tonight. The Chiefs have really, really struggled this season, I think. So it is interesting to see them be such a heavy favorite, but not all that surprising, right? I mean, not a lot has really changed about this offense. They're still as dynamic and potent as they've ever been. They just haven't performed up to their billing so far. So I think they looked to right the ship here, against an opponent that they definitely have overmatched in the New York Giants.
Yeah, and you mentioned the record 3-4. They're only 1-4 in their conference, 0-1 in their division. They're last place in their division. I mean, you look at their standing in the AFC. The Broncos are a game ahead of them. The Chargers are a game or a half a game ahead of them. Obviously, we know the Raiders are up there, 5-2 with a great start to the season. So it's very surprising there, kind of have no tiebreakers against the top teams. And the Titans and Bills, they lost to both of them. So it's going to be an uphill battle for the Chiefs. But if anybody can do it, it's them. If they can even get that defense looking like a semblance of a defense, up from 31, if they can start to perform even a little bit better, even if they're, around the middle of the league or even, 20th or something, that offense is good enough that can carry them forward. But, I mean, the offense, even the last 3 weeks, I think they were number 1 in the league through 4 weeks. In the last 3 games, they're like 24th or something. So it's been a rough go of it lately for the Chiefs, but it's hard to bet against them. If anyone can do it, can do the turnaround, it's them, and they've got a great chance tonight. The Giants' defense is around middle of the pack, 16th against the pass, but I mean nothing spectacular that Mahomes can't do. But the big thing with him has been turnovers. He's turned the ball over a ton. I think 9 or 10 interceptions. Maybe he's at 10 interceptions now, which is, I don't know if I'd say uncharacteristic. I mean, he hasn't had a ton in the past, but he is kind of a gunslinger sometimes, and kind of, I guess, catching up with him. But we'll see if they can turn it around tonight on primetime. The last game of Week 8, if this was a regular season, or in the past, we'd be just finishing up first half of the season, games-wise for some of these teams, but got one more game, so almost halfway there.
That's right. We've got a 18-week season starting this year, so not quite at the halfway point, but we'll be passing over it shortly. And yeah, definitely hope to see an interesting game tonight. Obviously, the market doesn't really think it will be very close, but we'll probably be tuning in to check it out anyway.
Absolutely. Well, again, that'll do it for this week's recap. Just want to thank you all for listening and remind you that you can catch our shows on Monday and then my betting preview for the weekend's action on Thursdays. Both of those can be found on the EdjSports Podcast Network, available on your podcast platform of choice or on our YouTube channel. Just again, want to ask you, give us a 5-star review, leave a comment. We'll read it on the next show as well. Just want to get our analysis and get us out there so as many people as possible. Again, the new site and app I've mentioned a few times on here. Again, that's edjsports.com, EdjSports.com. The download is available both on iOS and Android. And be on the lookout for our coach rankings coming soon. Always really fun. We've already got quite a few people asking us about it. Big favorite of the media, so they can bash their coach or prop up their coach depending on how he comes out. But those will be coming out here in the next couple weeks. Also, our partners at Football Outsiders are currently running a special for FO Plus, which I mentioned is their premium subscription. Just $1 a week for an annual subscription. So be sure to check them out at footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. So again, Scott, thank you for joining me as you're here every Monday. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game, and everyone listening, enjoy the Monday Night Football action, the last game of Week 8, and we will catch you next week for our Week 9 recap, and again on Thursday this week for our Edge Sports betting preview.